Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Dr. Mike Israetel, I'm going to have to at some point count the number of times that all of my guests have been on this show because you'd be pretty high up on the scoreboard over the years. You were one of my first 10 guests ever, which actually helped kick this off 8 years ago. But we're here to talk about your new book coming out called The Aesthetic Revolution. I have been enjoying an advanced copy. I don't have a physical copy, so I'm going to hold up in front of me for the video people. What are your other books? The Scientific Principles of Hypertrophy Training. That also deserves a shout. In addition to being the co-founder of RP Strength, one of my great sponsors. So thank you. I am biased. It's great to see you.
Excellent. It's great to see you as well. Thank you for the intro.
Okay, let's do some of the fun stuff from the book. So, will we have access to drugs that allow us to build muscle without working out? And no, I am not talking about steroids.
Eventually, I think it's highly likely. They're already working on drugs like that. And I think this is an unmitigated, amazing thing, which makes it a kind of a unique opinion in the fitness industry.
So, how will these drugs be different than steroids?
So steroids are not designed to grow muscle. They're designed to make every single organism that has them. Androgenic steroids are designed to make an organisms more masculine. So that means facial hair growth, jaw enlargement, maturation, body hair growth, skin changes, voice changes, and also an enhancement in muscularity. And so when you're using steroids to try to grow muscle, you're really using something that was designed to make you more masculine, but muscularity is part of that, but it's just only one part of that. It's kind of like if you have one of those trucks that like has crates of chickens in it, and it's full of chickens, live chickens, and like it's also your daily driver to go to school and to work. It's like, so what are the chickens for? You're like, honestly, I just need a car to get me around. They're like, there's a lot of side effects with that smell. The chickens are loud, feed them all the time. Like, yeah, but it's the only car I have. So steroids are the only drug you have, and they happen to be currently the most effective drug for muscle gain. You're just getting a lot of side effects with steroids and health effects and all this other stuff. But one of the ways in which steroids work is they eventually lead to the deregulation of muscle growth, the reduction of the clamp on muscle growth through proteins like myostatin. Myostatin is a protein that's found in all of the muscle cells of your body, and it's skeletal muscle specific. Myostatin is only found in skeletal muscle, so it doesn't no effect on your blood vessels or your heart or anything like that. And skeletal muscle, when myostatin is present, does not grow itself very much. When myostatin is reduced in concentration or eliminated, muscle growth is like a hugely prioritized process, just kind of happens all the time. And then you get enormous, we've all seen, I think, the pictures of the greyhounds and the mice and the cows that have genes for manufacturing myostatin that are defective. And studies have been coming out on human applications of these for the last few years. And a recent study just came out that again showed myostatin, this was shown through people who have natural genetic variations and partially inactive myostatin. These people have more muscle, less fat, and seemingly no downsides whatsoever. And the reason for no downsides whatsoever is because myostatin really just uncorks muscle growth. It just doesn't really do much else. And so when we're really specific about the kind of drugs we develop and we really understand the mechanisms behind muscle growth deeply, which we do now as a scientific industry to some extent, that it's absolutely entirely possible to make drugs that have very few side effects, possibly almost none, and have exactly the primary effect that we're looking for, which is muscle growth. And I'll say another thing. Anytime people get really weird about, but like everything has a trade-off and a cost and a downside, and it's not that simple in the human body because the human body is complex. To the complexity point, I say this. If you're trying to get someone to express attention deficit disorder less, the number of genes involved and the complexity of the behavior of human attention is really high. Muscle growth of the skeletal muscles is not that complicated. And I don't mean it's not complicated. I mean, it's not that complicated. And so we have very, very excellent medications with not so many downside risks, modern ones, non-stimulant ones for attention deficit disorder. We have at least 3 classes of them in the modern time, and a 4th class is currently in testing. So like, is it really wild for us to believe that muscle growth can be a thing that we really have good purchase on? Another example is blood pressure drugs. We're like in the 9th generation of blood pressure meds. And now there's all kinds of mechanisms. They work great. Downsides are minimal. They're super healthy, super safe, and nobody bats an eye at them. There's just nothing on principle to think we can't do that to muscle growth as well.
So, asking for a friend, how would one say sign up for these trials of these drugs? Uh, and when are we likely, forget that question, when are we most likely to see the approval of these drugs and access to them? And I guess there's probably going to be the early access to people who have the resources, and then there's probably going to be the theoretical mass adoption of this sort of stuff. Is everybody going to be walking around jacked as Jared Feather?
Yes. No, highly unlikely. So approval in the United States is probably going to take several years. And the drugs currently in testing are not drugs that you can ever use yourself. They need in-hospital infusion. Now they're going to work on versions of these drugs that are, just once weekly administration by yourself, subcutaneously through injection. No doubt oral versions are going to be coming eventually, but I don't like to make predictions about specific dates and timelines, but I would say like anything much before 2028 is probably not going to be a reality. There are different ways of thinking about this though, and I'll get to those in a second, but I think oral, small molecule, very effective, very low side effect muscle growth drugs are probably like a circa 2030 sort of thing.
Mm.
Being a little pessimistic. However, there are 2 things to say about ways in which that timeline could speed up substantially, maybe 3. The maybe one is artificial superintelligence. AI is going to be able to make drug discovery and drug vetting by like thousands of times faster or something, taking timelines from years down to weeks. That's probably going to happen in like 2028, 2029. AI is going to get that powerful. And so that could really change 2029. But the other 2 things are, number one, there are peptides always being developed and small molecule drugs always being developed that could just really race ahead of these drugs we have currently in testing. And because the peptide market is not in the US so regulated anymore, thank God, RFK, my man,
I'm just waiting to see the spike in people who just turned off the episode after that reference right there. I got to check the metrics on that one.
Anytime you get into politics, people get upset. So, the peptide legality situation means that if there's an effective muscle growth group of peptides that come out substantially before this, people will just start using them and just won't even care about human trials. And then so that might just like be a thing where at some point the regulatory authorities have to be like, okay, we have to look at these drugs, couple week trials, fast track approval because everyone's doing it already and we just can't stop it. The other thing is China. China currently has a very deregulated environment for drug discovery, and they are producing new drugs faster than the United States. The United States typically does not like losing to China. Especially Donald Trump doesn't like losing to China. And so the FDA is currently kind of re-architecting parts of its approval structure to go much faster. And we may still just get drugs you can buy off the internet from China that are like super effective and tested, but just not without all the gunk of the FDA. And so we could, within the next even year, see oral small molecule drugs that hit the gray market scene like crazy. Like Reddit and all the bodybuilding forums are going to be like, dude, you got to try this. This is the shit. I mean, it just completely shuts down all steroids. There's no point left. My blood work's amazing. I feel amazing. There's no side effects. All the animal data looks good. People will just start using it. And then it'll be like a before that and after that kind of world history situation. And at some point, like you'll see a lot of pro bodybuilders will stop using steroids and you'll be like, whoa, holy shit, they don't even use them. The steroid's a real blunt instrument, real blunt, real lots of side effects. I think the fact that we use them at all is kind of embarrassing. It shows how not modern we are.
And I think people are going to hear this and think of this through the bodybuilding lens, but this has applications like sarcopenia, older adults, wasting diseases, all this sort of stuff. I'm assuming, right?
So that's why it's being designed. The big pharmaceutical companies don't get out of bed for bodybuilders. Bodybuilders constitute approximately 0% of the consumer market of drugs. And so these are drugs developed for one real big specific reason, but a bunch of smaller, very, very important reasons. One big specific reason is that the weight loss drugs, the GLPs, have just had a revolutionary impact. And now almost anybody can just kind of lose as much weight as they want with them within reason and within time frames. The problem is that when people lose weight and they don't eat sufficient amount of protein, they don't weight train, they lose a lot of muscle. And these drugs don't make you lose any more muscle than if you lost the weight yourself. But it turns out if you lose a bunch of weight by eating less and you don't exercise, you don't eat enough protein, you lose a lot of muscle. And so this is like not really a problem for people in the middle ages, young people, because whatever, you still have enough muscle to move around, nobody cares, just got kind of a skinny vibe. But for older adults, many people who need to lose weight to save their lives are older. Sarcopenia is a real big deal, and if you lose a bunch of weight, the only thing keeping you non-sarcopenic was your obesity. And now that your obesity is gone, your bones and muscles aren't being loaded anymore from carrying around your larger self, and now you're at a real low level of muscle mass. Very bad for metabolic health, very bad for independent moving and all this other stuff. Very bad for osteoporosis, osteopenia. And of course, we have an aging population around the world, lots of older folks. They need more muscle mass. Muscle mass is a huge health benefit to them. And so at the end of the day, you realize, like, man, the addressable market for non-androgenic anabolic drugs is massive. And so these pharmaceutical companies are being very smart by working on these drugs in due diligence. And I guarantee you, behind the scenes, the kind of drugs they're coming up with and the kind of ferocity with which they're developing them in all the major drug labs is massive, because this is one of those things where the pharmaceutical companies already saw like the Ozempic effect, you know, and the Manjaro, and they were like, holy shit, this is like $1 trillion industry. They're not messing around anymore. Now they're looking at what's obvious, and these people they're smarter than me for sure, and they're looking around and going, okay, like, it's not rocket science. Clearly we need a drug that builds and maintains muscle mass. And so will people walk around looking like Jared Feather? No, because the typical therapeutic dosage of these drugs will be just enough to spare your muscle mass to make sure you don't lose any and maybe gain a little bit. Will other people, like bodybuilders, be using 10 times the dose of this drug to get ginormous? Yes, absolutely. And that's probably way better than them using 10 times the steroid amount to get an even less beneficial effect.
To my coach listeners, I have a little something of value for you, a $1,500 value seminar for just $19, but let me explain the context first. Endorsing people I know and trust is everything. My friend, Dr. Sean Pastuch, is the founder of Active Life. Sean and I have presented at fitness conferences together, and we share a philosophy on helping coaches serve their clients better and want caring professionals to stay in a fulfilling career they love. Sean and Active Life have something of value for you. If you're a fitness coach who works with clients who have pain and movement limitations, and isn't that almost every client, and you feel like you're guessing at solutions instead of following a system, Active Life's professional biomechanics assessment workshop will be of value to you. It's a 2-day live online workshop where you'll learn the foundational principles behind assessment, load management, and how to actually help clients move and feel better. This used to be a $1,500 seminar that people would fly in to attend. Right now, it's just $19. And for listeners of the show, the CEU upgrade worth $100 is completely free. Just use the code COATS at checkout. Go to the link in the description to grab your spot. Again, use the code COATS at checkout. What's coming down the pipe with the GLP-1 agonist medications and newer generations of these types of drugs, the double agonist, triple agonist drugs?
Yeah, so there are two things to say about that. There's much more than two, but I'll give you two kind of tidbits. One is they're taking the GLP base, glucagon-like peptide 1, and so that's a peptide, and they're stapling other peptides on top of it and other functional groups on top of it that do other things. So GIP is another peptide that, when combined with GLP, reduces the side effects massively and doesn't just seem to curb hunger, but curbs cravings as well in a way we didn't really expect. So that those two combinations are tirzepatide, phenomenal. And then we have a triple agonist in retatrutide, which is close to approval in the United States, that has a glucagon agonist on it. And the glucagon agonist does some really cool stuff, and it actually increases metabolic rate. And it really burns the crap out of your liver fat and your intra-abdominal fat. Tirzepatide burns intra-abdominal fat, not as much liver fat. And so massive health elixirs, these drugs. I just saw a paper on a quintuple agonist that's got all kinds of other goodies strapped onto it. One of these things has like some more insulin modulation, some IGF-1 modulation, and basically these drugs are just like incredibly powerful at weight loss. So that's one kind of avenue, and that's going to continue in that direction. The other avenue is alternatives to GLPs. GLPs are not the only drugs that are called anorectics. They're not the only drugs that make you eat less. There is a whole class of drugs called amylin agonists. One of them is branded as cagrilintide, which I absolutely have never taken. Definitely taken it from a gray market lab, and it doesn't. It absolutely reduces your hunger to a massive extent. It does not come with the same exact side effects as GLP-1s, and it can be stacked on top of GLP-1s in order to get an even more augmented effect. It does have some cool side effects, like food doesn't smell the same as it used to, doesn't smell as appealing anymore. You're like, this smells weird, I don't want to eat it. And so it has that effect. So, I mean, there are going to be numerous other vectors for reducing how much you're eating. And it doesn't just have to be GLP based. So I'll share a third in advancement with you. So one is adding functional groups onto, or functional units onto the GLP base in order to get really much cooler effects, with GLP doing most of the anorectic, the appetite reduction work, and then everything else on top just being better. The other modification is just altogether different classes of drugs to attack the same fat loss, weight loss problem. And the third thing is they've got oral forms of most of these drugs, either in development or one of them just got approved. So like you won't have to be taking any kind of like injections. In the next few years, we'll have multiple very, very, very powerful weight loss drugs that are just oral only. You just take a pill every day and you manage your hunger. Everything's great. And I think that's going to open up the use of these drugs to like tens of millions of more people, because a lot of people just won't do injections, which is totally understandable. Before I got involved in this whole dark side seedy steroid business, I absolutely would have never considered doing an IV drug, an intramuscular or subcutaneous drug. It's crazy. Nothing with needles. I think it's going to be a big deal.
I'm glad you mentioned the targeting of the liver fat, because I just recorded, although it'll be out a couple of months before this episode, with medical doctor Jordan Feigenbaum of Barbell Medicine. He's really
Okay.
smart, and he actually brought this up when it comes to even the current GLP-1 agonist medications and the DEXA scans. What they were seeing was when they went deeper, I think it was MRIs, what have you, that there was actually a substantial loss of some of the weight was the liver fat and the stuff that would actually still show up in a DEXA as lean mass. And
Yeah.
so his interpretation, that he was sort of like, I think he's a little preliminary, but this is his, and he's qualified on the evidence, was that this is actually overstating the amount of lean mass loss. And in fact, it might even be better than just dieting alone for preferentially targeting this liver fat. And it might be a little bit more muscle sparing than everybody is even saying. Now, again, this is his interpretation. Anybody who's interested can go listen to that episode, the evidence he states. It's definitely interesting stuff.
Yep.
Now, what about a tipping point on mass adoption of this stuff? It doesn't need to be a specific timeline, or what set of circumstances are we probably going to see where we see, a true tipping point where this is ubiquitous?
I think we're already on the ascent. Everywhere I go in the last few months, everyone wants to know about peptides. People are even convinced that peptides do things they don't do yet. I was doing an interview just yesterday with a nice gentleman who runs a YouTube channel. And he was like, what do you think about peptides? What peptides are you taking for muscle growth? And I go, there are no peptides for muscle growth. And he was like shocked. He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, it just doesn't exist. I would absolutely be taking them if they existed, but they don't. And so from what I understand, I've been sort of man on the street about peptides. A lot of people are taking peptides. I mean, I was walking in Austin. We'd finished filming a video. It was late at night. There's drunk people everywhere, Austin, Texas, on 6th Street. And I was walking back with Scott and Max to the hotel, and there's a couple of drunk dudes walking behind us. And one guy's like, yeah, man, for tetratyde, it's amazing. And he gave it all these benefits that were fictitious. He's like, it spares all your muscle and just burns your fat, which isn't true. But he was just so pumped about it. And like every single person, we ran into a bunch of college kids. And they were like, legit, they were like, everyone we know is taking peptides. Everyone in my dorm is on peptides. And so I think for younger people, for more open-minded people, especially the as I call them, the tides, semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide, like the tide is lifting. Like that's it, man. These people are using them en masse, right? Lots of people. I think the big turning around is really going to be once these medications are oral and once doctors get to be in like sort of laissez-faire with prescribing them. Like, you want to lose weight? Sweet, there's medication.
Mhm.
I think that once that starts, and once there is a diversity of medications, like one of them gives you side effects, you switch to another one. We're going to be in a situation where a lot of people just won't assume that losing fat without them is like the best course of action, and they're probably going to be correct. But like, so for example, Andrew, you've been around like a lot of young people, and they're going to be like, all right, I want to start lifting weights. You're like, cool. They're like, what kind of creatine do I need? You're like, whoa, like, why are you asking that? But it's kind of very commonplace, right, to ask about like creatine when you start lifting weights. I think it's getting that commonplace soon to ask about weight loss meds when you want to lose weight, and at that point,
Mm,
they're fucking mainstream.
that makes sense. Based on what you just said, I'm expecting Austin street corners is going to be peptide dealers coming out after dark.
Trench coats, the whole thing. Weird vans that are unmarked. Yeah.
Uh, will how much will people be able to design their physiques? And we're talking about the weight loss drugs, the muscle building drugs, but like even your book, you get into, the advancements in cosmetic surgery and the interplay with all these things.
Yeah, so like today already, we have drugs for weight loss. We have, some combination of prescribed growth hormone and testosterone replacement therapy for muscle gain. Obviously, resistance training is huge, diet is huge. Those are the two biggest ones that go without saying. But then, like, you can selectively remove fat and skin from kind of any part of your body, which you point to, and a surgeon can arrange that. You can get your waist tightened substantially if you have like a bigger waist. And you can even get your bones re-architected so that they're longer or shorter, depending on how you like. That's very expensive surgery, very long recovery time, very expensive. But all of these things are trending down in price and up in quality, such that I estimate some point, it's very difficult to make timelines because things could just go really differently. People, all of society could have different priorities by the 2030s. But assuming that people still care about how they look, I think in the 2030s, we're going to start to see a lot of people going the advanced pharmaceuticals and surgery route to just like kind of no longer accept what genetics and life history has given them for their body. And I think that's a big deal. I think it's going to make a lot of people ecstatically happy about how they look. And I think that leads into genetic engineering, which is going to be, I think, more of a mid 2030s thing if I had to guess. This is a very uneducated guess. I suppose I take that back. Highly educated, but very, very rough guess because it's just, you have to assume so many things. But I think that genetic engineering allows you to really to carte blanche how you look. I mean, just like really, it's just going to change almost anything you think about yourself. But the way I like to think about it is this, Andrew. When I walk around, go to the mall, go out to eat, just walk around anywhere, airports, anything. You look around at our fellow Americans and Canadians, and the average person's out of shape. And the just above average and the distribution person, or below, however you like to think about it, is really out of shape. And what I mean by that is like, it's not that they huff and puff going upstairs, is that they have like anywhere between 25 and 150 extra pounds of fat on their body. And that fat has re-architected their whole silhouette. Their skin has stretched. Their fat cell number is really high. Their abdomen has been blown out. For every person that doesn't care at all about how they look, God bless them, I wish I was that person, there's at least one person who really cares about how they look. And so in my estimate, I mean, there's between the US and Canada, there's got to be like 100 million people that, or two things, really care about how they look deep down and do not look how they would like remotely. And I mean remotely. And it's a very valid perspective and also very easy for fitness influencer types or just fit people to have like decent, like very good bodies. I mean, by normal people standards, phenomenal bodies, but even by their standards, pretty good. And they'll say things like, oh, surgery, you shouldn't resort to that. It should be hard work. You should learn to love yourself. But that's dope. And it's absolutely true for so many people. But it's not like an entirely true statement in the sense it doesn't cover all of the variation that humans have. And so for some humans, like if I put a fitness influencer girl who, let's say, Ideally, she'd want to weigh 130 pounds with 12% fat. And she currently weighs 120 pounds and has 15% fat. So she's got like a lot of muscle to gain, and maybe even a little fat to lose to get to her ideal shape. But she's still in that general shape of like people don't mistake her for someone who doesn't work out. People don't worry about her health. Guys don't look at her when she propositions them to go on dates and like recoil and be like, you're kidding me, right? You're kidding. This is a joke. Where are the cameras? If you look like that latter thing, if you are a woman who's of normal height, you weigh 250 pounds, you have 100 pounds of excess body fat, it's not fun. And so at some point, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to use every safe and effective tool available to re-architect my body so that I like my body.
Mm.
And then everybody else who has an opinion can probably go fuck themselves, or they can fuck me because I'm hot now. All jokes aside, it's a real thing. When I think in the fitness industry, sort of like we're like, well, you got to do it, without these drugs, or if you're a bodybuilder that takes copious drugs, then you can look down on people who do surgery and say it's the easy way out. We want the easy way out. We want any way out that we can that's not going to get us hurt, because for some people, they're in bodies that are so disagreeable to their desire to be in that they're just not having any fun.
Do you think this will affect exercise, fitness attendance, gym membership type stuff? Because I think there's a couple of ways this could be. It theoretically could lower the barrier for certain people who would never participate to actually go in and I'd love to also have you incorporate what health qualities do these drugs not address that we still actually need to pay attention to?
Yeah, so I'll answer that last question first. They don't address bone loading and they don't address physical activity. So you still need to be physically active and still need to put heavy weights on yourself. But once you have that, if we're assuming these drugs, we mean weight loss drugs plus muscle gain drugs, yeah, kind of everything else, you're good to go. And what that really portends is a world in which people who aren't super psyched about the gym can now be lean and muscular and can now get their bone health and their cardiovascular health through like 50 trillion different other hobbies and fun things. Kayaking, basketball, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, pickleball, doing fun stuff, right? Because for those of us that love the gym is the best. But for those people, the majority of people, numerically, who don't love the gym is just a means to an end for them. And so if they could get from what they get currently from the gym in a pill, my God, like what a win. I'll also say another thing related to that. You asked about gym participation and fitness participation. So I'll say this. Participation in fitness related hobbies like kayaking, like pickleball, like beach volleyball, it's gonna fucking skyrocket. Because a lot of people just don't participate in those because they're not in either visual shape or physical shape enough to do them. Like, I'm not going to go embarrass myself playing pickleball. I'm fat motherfucker. Fuck that. Also, I'll tweak my knee like I did last time. I'm just not the kind of shape that I want to play pickleball, but I can't. My problem will be solved real soon because I'll be able to lose a bunch of weight, gain some muscle, really train up, and really play all the pickleball I want. What a phenomenal thing that's going to be. So for activities, sports, hobbies, I think we're going to see like a second renaissance of that kind of stuff. For hardcore gyms, physique-oriented gyms like Dragon's Lair in Las Vegas or Pure Muscle in Hamilton, Ontario, right? Huge renaissance, because there's lots of people not going into hardcore fitness because they don't have the genetics or the life history or the ability to gain that much muscle, lose that much fat, where they even think they belong, right? Like if I told you, hey, it's 1970, we're about to release Primobolan, which is a steroid that has not so many side effects as testosterone, and not as many, but grows muscles totally well. And can you imagine if you said, oh man, people are going to stop going to the gym? Like, no, triple the people are going to go to the gym now because they have Primo and they feel like fucking Superman. And so when you give hardcore fitness addicts the ability to have like very low side effect muscle gain drugs and low side effect weight loss drugs, you're going to see way more of them in the gym sculpting their perfect physiques, which is just going to be so much more possible because they're so empowered. So that's going to be amazing. The next 5 years, 5 to 7 years for hardcore gyms that specialize in people who really give a shit about powerlifting, weightlifting, strongmen, and especially bodybuilding and physique sport and just looking good naked. My God, this is the best time ever for those gyms. I will say, once the muscle growth drugs come out and get ubiquitously adopted, for gyms like Planet Fitness, not to single them out, they're in today's environment, they're doing God's work. These are life-saving institutions. But A huge fraction of people that go to the Dragon's Lair in Las Vegas, for example, hardcore bodybuilding gym, I mean, they go there because that's where people perfect their physiques. They're not going to stop until their physiques are perfect. We don't have drugs for that yet, so you'll just keep seeing them at Dragon's Lair. Very small minority of people go to Planet Fitness to perfect their physique. Most of them are going there because they know they have to work out. They know the medical benefits, they know the aesthetic benefits, they don't necessarily love being there, but to go in there twice a week to train their arms and legs and back and chest so that like they can just like look decent at age 47. As soon as those people get the pills that grow muscle and help them lose fat, it is by no means clear to me that they will return to institutions like Planet Fitness. And I'm inclined to believe that quote unquote big box gyms, especially ones that operate on revenue models where most of their members buy memberships out of guilt and then don't show up, they might have a hard time because people just might not be going there anymore because most of the people that were going there could just get what they used to get out of the gym from a pill or from two pills, weight loss pill and muscle gain pill. They're just not going to show up again. It's not going to be everyone, but it's going to be enough that some locations will be strained and even some corporations may be strained. Hardcore fitness, the best time ever for it. Non-hardcore fitness, maybe not great.
Will people stay happy in the context of a, if the mean, let's call it attractiveness, if we're looking at it through this lens, it's not the only lens, but it is one of them, hence the title of your book, The Aesthetic Revolution. If everybody is, quote, hotter in your words, then two, and we know that the psychological research on, I don't know if it's hedonic adaptation or whatever, but like whether someone wins the lottery, that there's the shit about people tend to have bad financial outcomes when they win the lottery. That's a separate thing. Or the person
Yeah.
who unfortunately ends up, in a wheelchair because of a catastrophic injury, their happiness levels after, I believe it's several months, tend to return to baseline. So factoring all those things in, do we actually think that people will, on average, stay happy?
Hedonic, that's a great question, Andrew. Hedonic adaptation is a real thing. Hedonic adaptation is typically two things: fractional and partial. Let me describe what I mean by those two terms. It's fractional in that only a fraction of people get full-blown hedonic adaptation, and other people don't.
Hmm.
So some people do just like you get in a car accident, they have a sad few months, and then they're like, fuck it, I'm never going to walk again. I'm just as happy as I ever was. Some people, many people, never return to their prior levels of happiness. The dark side of that research is that the examples of people who are just as happy after a tragedy, they're cherry picked. Not nefariously, but they're cherry picked. The insight from that research is many people who get limbs chopped off get just as happy afterwards after a transitional period. It is not all people. For some people, it is a life ruining thing. Full stop.
Hmm.
They never get better. And that sucks. So that's a thing. Second of all, on the partial situation, hedonic adaptation is sometimes complete in the sense that you just go right back to baseline, but it's sometimes not complete. I've lived my life as a person with no money, some money, and now more recently, a lot of money. Certainly by my own standards from back when I was young, like total fuck you money. I'm not really any interested to go back in time to when I had no money. It does not appeal to me. I can get moments of where I'm not grateful for the money, and they're toxic moments. I can just forget that I've done really well. But boy, oh boy, is it a nice security blanket to have a shitload of money and go, well, if I get fired from work or if I hurt myself, I'll be all right. That's a big deal. So yes, there has absolutely been hedonic adaptation for myself as I've made more money, but it's not been complete. It's been like maybe 2/3 of the way, which means I get to keep 1/3 of my happiness from just like having made this money. And there's another thing to say. People who are unattractive by global standards, let's say the average 1,000 people are asked to comment on your appearance, rank you on a 1 to 10 scale, and the average ranking is a 2, right? Which means like, whoa, holy shit, like 9 and 10 would be beautiful people, a 2 is like atrocious, right? If you're a 2, the way you move through society is different than how everyone else moves through society. People look at you different. People are meaner to you. People pretend you don't exist. People don't reach out to you to be your friend. The research literature on this is the saddest shit in the entire world. So for people who go from 7 to 9, they're going to have a great time being more attractive. It's going to be awesome. but it's probably not going to change their whole life, and it's not going to be the only thing that makes them happy, and the hedonic adaptation will partially reverse that, and so they'll be like, all right. But for people to go from a 2 to an 8, it'll be nothing short of life-changing. Andrew, you've worked with many people that you've helped get from very obese down to normal body weights. Do these people hedonically reverse, in your opinion? No. Fuck no.
Generally speaking, no.
No.
It doesn't insulate them against like other unrelated shit just going wrong, but
Sure.
when it comes to their experience being transformed in a different body and what they have access to, I mean, I can think of one of my clients who came to this conference, was a life of the party. Shout out Dal, who's lost 130 pounds and is walking around probably around 130. So she lost, half of her original
Half.
weight. And now she's a nutrition coach and everybody loves her and she's really smart. I bet you ask her and she would tell you that her experience of walking through the world is profoundly transformed. And, I notice by and large, she's pretty happy when it comes to anything related to this.
Yes. Yes. So what I will say, just to kind of summarize this little part of the discussion, is when people become more attractive, it dependably lifts their psychology to like more happiness. But the lift is small to moderate on average. For some people, it's massive. For some people, it doesn't exist at all, or even some people go in reverse, like the distribution overlaps to the 0 point. Because some people like think it's going to be great, and then they just get like sleazebags to hit on them more, and they just did not like the attention, and they're sort of like, God damn it, I should have gotten skinny or gotten fake titties. It was the worst mistake in my life. So, that attention that you get, right? That's not great for everyone. The average person does experience more happiness. One thing that I would really, really like to refute is the idea that the trend line, that the comparator just moves up. So people say, okay, well, if we're all 9s and 10s, then really it's just back to 0. Like, would you say that about money? Like, if everyone had $50 billion, like you could spend it on, if the prices were all the same, would you really be like, yeah, but now it doesn't matter? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You can buy all the healthcare you want. You can buy trips to Spain. You could get anything you need, any kind of car, you can throw parties and have fun with your friends. That was shit you could never do before. But really, is it because everyone else has 50 billion that you're like pissed? Like, nah. Yes, comparison is a thing, but here's the beautiful part. If everybody, let's say in the mid to late 2030s, everyone looks exactly how they're going to want. And let's pretend that nothing else changes about humans, which is highly unlikely. Let's just say psychologically everyone's kind of similar, whatever. Now you're being sorted by prospective people that you're dating or socializing with based on hotness, but also based on what's up here in your brain or what's in your heart, right? Not literal heart, you know what I mean? Like emotionally, are you a good person? Right now, we just look at the hot girls or the hot guys and we go, okay, which one of them is a good person? But like they have to pick of the litter because there's not that many of them, there's tons of other people. When almost everyone is hot, hotness won't matter. And that'll be the greatest thing ever because first of all, everyone will be really pleased at seeing each other. Like if you have to hook up with the girl of your dreams, but she's either a monster or an angel, which one do you want? It's not a very complicated question. And now that everyone looks like an angel, everyone's having more fun in the bedroom. Everyone finds themselves more attractive. Can you imagine a dance club where everyone's fuck ugly versus a dance club where everyone's gorgeous? Which dance club's having more fun? Like these are not complicated questions. We pretend they are. We try to make excuses. I'll tell you this, Andrew, now that I'm ranting, you got me in a fucking rant. People's trying to sweep under the rug how not fun it is to be unattractive physically is getting fucking old, real old. It's not, nobody likes to talk about it, but it's a real thing. And so once everyone is roughly as physically attractive, you're going to find out if people were just talking to you because you were hot or because you were also fucking smart. Because that ugly girl you used to make fun of, now she's hot and now she's fucking smart and she's funny too. You're out of a job, Deborah. It's Vicky's time.
Oh, I think the GLP-1 medications have pulled the rug out of that narrative completely. Usually people oversimplify it by saying that it, completely, invalidates the whole health at any size movement. There's a lot of complexity to that. But I also think there's a little bit of truth to that too. I wonder how many listeners we've collectively pissed off with this one.
The red button meme, which button to hit meme? It's like health at every size versus take GLP. So the guy's like, oh, I don't know. Oh.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Israetel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years, and I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time, like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the junk volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having a lot of my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP.
To your original discussion, I mean, I think if everybody walking around kind of looks like either Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt when they co-starred in Mr. and Mrs. Smith together, it's probably a pretty good time to create a visual. Let's go in a different direction. Actually, this is important first. The mental health. So obviously there's the happiness effect on mental health. I think you've done a good job with that one. But let's almost call it like the physiological mental health benefits from actual exercise. Do you think that, to your point earlier, that people are just going to go out and kayak and jujitsu their way into feeling really good, pickleball, get a high off of pickleball? Or do you think a lot of people still go to the gym because they're like, no, man, like I need this to keep me from killing people?
I mean, so like the best sport to keep you from killing people is like jiu-jitsu or MMA or Muay Thai, because you get to actually kill people, quote unquote, and that feels grand. People will still do that. People will go to the gym to powerlift, to weightlift. People will still go to the gym at least for a while until we have either genetic engineering or specific drugs to target specific muscle groups. People are going to go to the gym to sculpt their bodies. Gaining more muscle overall is like, I'll use myself as a good example. I don't have very good proportions. I don't have good muscle bellies or all that stuff. So I'm like, like right now, I'm like, I don't know, 9% body fat at like 230 pounds, 5'6". Well, that's a jack dude. I'm pretty lean, but I look like shit because my proportions are all fucky. And so, like, the gym is the ultimate place to do that, because if I take more drugs, I'm just going to look exactly the same proportions but bigger, and I take less drugs, they look smaller. And so it's going to be a time for many people who still go to the gym, but they just pump like vanity muscles, like shoulders and arms, shoulders and arms, shoulders and arms, a little bit of chest and back, hit the club, or just really like crafting a beautiful physique for yourself meticulously, balancing various muscle groups. Those people are going to get empowered. They're still going to be in the gym. Are the people going to be in the gym that just need to blow off steam? Yes. But I think there's just other ways to blow off steam that are at least as good as the gym and offer a community element. Like, the gym is kind of an individualistic place. Like, yes, it's a community, but also a lot of people just kind of headphoned in and doing their own thing. You start doing, kickboxing classes, Muay Thai, some team sports. You're connecting with other people. You get a whole other thing from it. You get the workout high as well. This running and running clubs, that's going to be, I think, a huge thing to blow up as well. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people will continue to go to the gym for the psychological health benefits. But I think some of those people are going to go look outside the gym or go to other kinds of gyms, like kickboxing studios and stuff, where they're really going to get their psychological hit of that good that exercise provides. Here's another one: dancing. I mean, if you solve the problem of fat loss and muscle gain, you could just do like 10 dance classes a week and get all the exercise you need. It's fun. You learn how to dance. It's amazing. Right now, a lot of people do gym work that's just kind of drudgery, just putting in the hours to get the body, and then they take their body and they go do some other stuff with it if they have time. I'm saying less drudgery and more doing fun things. And I have the ultimate kind of card in this discussion. My entire business model and source of income is maintained based off people wanting to alter their bodies at the gym. So I have no financial incentive whatsoever to say this kind of crazy shit. The other thing is, I'm not one of those people. I don't want to go fucking salsa dancing. I sure as shit don't want to go kayaking. I want to be in the gym all fucking day doing this shit. But I gotta be intellectually honest and admit, like, yeah, the time for needing to be in the gym just to get a regular muscular and lean body, it's coming to an end within the next 5 years.
I'll keep using the Hypertrophy app for a little longer. I've been enjoying it a lot. So
excellent. Just a little bit longer.
yeah, there'll be an ad somewhere in this episode about it too.
Excellent.
I actually do love it. They didn't pay me to say. Actually, they did pay me to say that, but they do. All that money you've been giving me a little bit of it. So thank you. You've been helping me pay my mortgage. I appreciate it. Here's a big one. Does the aesthetic revolution of these drugs also promise life extension? Because we're talking about a lot of the superficialities. We're also talking about things that are metabolic health. But is this going to lead to meaningful life extension, in particularly, yours and my window of time? I'm 48. Am I going to live to 200?
Yeah. So gaining muscle, losing fat, taking drugs that are called exercise mimetics, they mimic a lot of the cardiovascular benefits, metabolic benefits of exercise, which are also in the pipeline. Some of them are real. You can buy them on the gray market. They all mechanistically lead to an enhancement of longevity. Almost certainly. Because they just make your metabolism, for lack of a better term, less rusty. Like they clean up the shit, not as much shit goes wrong. Low levels of muscularity cause high systemic inflammation. High levels of body fat cause high systemic inflammation. So you're fixing two birds with one stone there. In addition to that, the GLPs all have massive, massive systemic anti-inflammatory properties. There's already been cohort studies that have shown that people who have been on semaglutide for a long time, who are older, don't die as often as their cohort match controls, which did not take the semaglutide. These are body weight equated, by the way. And so like the same body weight, they still live longer. So these drugs absolutely have low-key longevity benefits. I think the real kicker for you is just to make it till you're 60. Because in 12 years, the probability, so there's just kind of, the world kind of just goes two ways, in my view. There's other options, of course. These are probably the two most likely ways. One is the robots wake up, they laser gun us all to death, beep, 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 and that's it. Shit's been good, but the Terminator one. Highly unlikely, hypothetically possible, wouldn't worry about it much because we won't have much to say anyway, because robots always win. John Connor, not a realistic hero, but the other opportunity, the other possibility, which is much more.
I'll interrupt this episode for a quick but important side quest. While I don't think everybody needs to track nutrition all the time, tracking is one of the most powerful tools to make sure you're not eating too much or too little. And Macros First is my go-to app for me and my clients. Macros First has a free barcode scanner, and a premium version comes with a bunch of cool stuff to make managing your nutrition easier. Like, one, AI search. AI is everywhere now, where you can speak or type the foods you wish to save and log everything without having to search for each individual ingredient. Two, import recipes from a website. Save time creating recipes manually by importing all ingredients and instructions from your favorite recipe websites. No more searching for each ingredient one by one, just paste in the website. And three, this one's a big one for nutrition coaches. Follow unlimited friends so you can follow all your clients. And there's a lot more cool features. You can try the premium version of Macros First free for 14 days. Just download Macros First from the App Store. And during setup, you'll be asked, how did you hear about us? Type in the code Andrew.
Likely is that we unweave biology from like a mechanistic understanding perspective. AI can do this. It's already doing this. It decoded proteomics. It's on to bigger and better problems. And so the probability that AI gives us medicine that reverses biological age is high. It's very high. And that is such a big deal. There's actually, the United States right now is running the world's first human age reversal trial. Right now. The shit works on dogs, it works on mice, and it's almost certainly going to work on humans. I assess that by the early to mid 2030s, age reversal technology is going to be nearly ubiquitous, and seeing old people is going to become more and more rare. Up until like the late 2030s, I think seeing old people is potentially going to be like a, whoa, holy shit. I think we'll be looking at pictures from like all of history and being like, oh my God, like we let old people just die? We just got old and died? That's what happened? And I legitimately think that's very highly likely.
I heard life extension for dogs. That's probably going to get a lot of people really excited. The fact that, their pet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. That's already a commercial product, actually.
Damn, I got to look into this to see if it applies to cats. Ozzy's 14, he's in great shape, but it's one of those existentially threatening things, right?
Yeah, it's time to give them all the drugs. Shoot Ozzy to the moon.
All right. You mentioned earlier AI can expand the capacity to develop these drugs. Just with the last couple of minutes here, any quick additional thoughts on, how AI is going to, change that?
So AI allows us to take bites out of problems we just previously thought were too complicated, because they were, and allows us to do things that are theoretically possible, but practically up until now have been somewhere between impossible and preposterous. For example, you have a certain target receptor you want to target. Let's say it's the myostatin receptor in skeletal muscle. And you want a drug that clips into that myostatin receptor and doesn't activate the receptor, so it doesn't block muscle growth, but it just sits there, and for like 6 months straight, it just occupies that receptor, so all the myostatin just has no effect whatsoever. So you take a pill once, and for 6 months, it just uncorks your ability to grow muscle like crazy. How would you go about designing this drug? Well, you have to like figure out what the shape of the receptor is, and you have to design a protein that fits exactly into that receptor, has exactly the target effect that you want. And also the rest of the protein and the drug that you make has to like not clip into other receptors of the body, because that's how side effects happen. How the fuck do you do that? Is trial and error? That's insane. Like, do you know how many receptor types there are and how many trillions of places that they can go in the body? Well, you can get AI, and it's already starting to do this, to both design you the receptor head, right? Because it'll just like figure out what receptor it is, design a protein that fits into that exactly, and also design that protein to make sure that it doesn't interact with any of its other component parts with any other known receptor in the human body. Because they know a bunch of receptor classes, they're all really well mapped, but like you just have to brute force the problem. AI loves brute forcing problems. It does that really well. And so you run the shit for a few days in simulation, and then you get like 10 candidate drugs. You run them in mice, and 9 of the 10 completely insane effects. One of them had pretty bad side effects. The other 9 didn't have hardly any side effects. And 2 of the drugs are just like best in class, unbelievable. You take those 2 drugs, you have human trials start, and the humans just like get insanely jacked, no side effects to be told, and at 6 months later, the receptor is still in there just like you thought it was going to be. That's a process that would typically have taken a lot of luck. We probably wouldn't even have found a really good receptor match. We'd have found drugs like modern psychiatric drugs. You know, people are like, oh, you're schizophrenic, take this drug. It's going to destroy your metabolism. It's going to make you super fat. And it's going to make you not have moods anymore. But it's better than being schizophrenic, which it is. But holy shit, with a trade-off, we're going to get to a point where we have drugs that AI can cook up that just don't really have very many downsides and have huge upsides and target exactly what we want. So that's a big thing, but it goes further than that. So what else AI can do is you can get a predictive model where the AI spins up a drug based on inference, like it thinks it's going to do this. And then you can demonstrate that model grows in complexity. And you have multiple trials with animals and then humans to see like how closely is the AI guessing as to actual effect. There's nothing, hypothetically, in the way, hypothetically, right? Actually, let me rephrase that. Technically, I'm being a pedantic asshole. Theoretically, there's nothing in the way of being able to model at least the human cell, but arguably the human body in some capacity, in some limited capacity, such that the AI's drug guess is 99.99999% likely to do exactly what you think and not do everything you don't think it's going to do. So, Andrew, let me make sure to restate that. It's just a really, really big deal. In the late 2020s, early 2030s, within 1 day to 1 week of AI simulation, you might get molecules that pop out. Like, here's a structure. And the probability they're going to do exactly what you want is going to be as high or higher than the probability they do what we want after all the exploratory work, all in vitro work, all animal work in 3 phases of clinical trials. So that means that by today's standards of what is acceptable for humans to take, we could have a new drug a day, a week or a day come out, and it's like, we just cured another disease, or we just cured another body composition ailment, or we just did this, or we just did that. And you're like, no, hold on, this hasn't been tested on people. Like, it sure hasn't. The probability that it will do exactly what we think is now like higher than even months of testing could have told you with people, because I mean, it's a limited sample, it's only a couple thousand people, who knows, right? And you know, sometimes statistics get funky. Once we get to AI predictive models that are that tight to what the human body actually does, I mean, Andrew, you might start taking a drug, and 2 months later, your doctor's like, that drug's outdated. Here's this new drug. You're like, what? When did this come out? He's like, last week, and it works great. And then that only gets faster. The only real thing that stops that is the transition between pharmacology, the pharmacological era, and the genetic engineering era. Because once you can, so like all drugs really do is like modify gene expression. If you really think about like genes make proteins and drugs usually like turn proteins up or down or on or off or do something like that. You're like, well, if we have these genes that cause these bad things and we're trying to take drugs that cause good things instead, why don't we just change the genes? And again, it's a huge combinatorial problem. You change one gene, the effect on the other genes gets wacky, and we're like, holy shit, how does this work? But again, it's a problem that's tractable for future AI that's really smart. And so you might have a situation where right now genetic engineering is kind of scary. In 10 years, it might be like, yeah, like, what do you want to look like? What do you want to be 7 foot tall? Do you want brown hair, red hair? Do you want a teeny tiny waist or a big, thick, strongman waist? Anything between. You know, they say, okay, I want to look like this, this, that. And they go, okay, great. And synthesizing, and we got a vial, and just inject this. And over the next 3 months, you're just going to change into whatever you said you were, and just going to stay like that for the indefinite future until you want to be something else. There's nothing theoretically precluding us from doing that. Nothing at all. And so I think the demand for it is massive. The resources for it are massive. And I think it's like nearly inevitable that we do that. I mean, the only real big stopping block from that, again, short of robots killing us all or whatever, there's 2 big stopping points for that, or things that could prevent that. One is what I like to call the Serene revolution, which is I think if we all get properly medicated for anxiety and depression, the fraction of people that might give a shit about how they look aesthetically might go down to almost zero. Because like at the end of the day, if you're super happy and calm, like who gives a fuck how you look, who cares about anything? That could come first, and it's likely to come in some variety. So I'm not sure how many people are going to be egotistically so deprived as myself as to want to modify their shit with genetic engineering to look a certain way. The other thing is cybernetics. At some point, machine limbs and machine morphology may like basically get so much more advanced than biological morphology that like one of your buddies who works at the car dealership gets his arm lobbed off because the car fell off the racks or something, and they put a robotic arm onto him, and it looks exactly like his human arm, except it's 10 times stronger, 10 times more resilient, feels all the heat and all the everything. And someone's like, dude, you lost your arm, that sucks. He's like, greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And you're like, oh, fuck. Why the fuck do we have our regular arms? I'm like an old man now, my arm sucks. Can't I just get enhanced arms and just have like Superman arms? And the answer is probably yeah. And so at some point we might like get into this place where humans are replacing body parts with machine parts, not for any weird like cyberpunk reason, not for some nefarious corporate reason, just because like in every possible way you could conceive of, those arms are better. And when I say this, and I say this often, most healthy, young, fit people are like, you're out of your fucking mind. A lot of them are like, that sounds great. A lot of them are like, you're out of your mind. So that's totally true. Total respect. I'm absolutely insane. But I will say another thing. When you're like 85 years old and you're frail, and someone's like, do you want to walk and see your grandchildren again? You're like, yes. Like, do you want robot legs? They're like, what the my legs are fucking useless. Yeah, I'll take them. And when there's old people in the park lapping you during their runs because they have fucking bionic legs, people might just start to see that stuff differently. So
Beautiful. And of course, you go way in more depth on most of this stuff outside of the robotic legs in the book, The Aesthetic Revolution.
yes.
It is out June 23rd, which is coming right up. So please go pre-order, go grab yourself a copy. Mike, amazing to see you as always. Go follow you at Dr. Mike Israetel and also at RP Strength. Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.